If you are planning your Azure certification path, I'm going to save you a lot of time and money. You don't need 8 certifications and you definitely don't need 12. You need 3, maybe 4 if you are going for something very specific. I'm Parveen Singh, Microsoft certified trainer and cloud solution consultant. I see a lot of people on LinkedIn posting about their 7th or 8th Azure certification, and I'm thinking, when did you actually build anything? Because at some point, you're not learning anymore. You are just collecting badges. Let me show you 3 certifications that actually matter, and more importantly, when you should get them and what you need to do between each one of them. The first one is AZ104 Azure Administrator Associate. This is your foundation and everyone should start here. This certification proves that you can actually manage and build cloud infrastructure. Not just understand the concept, but actually implement and maintain real environments. Virtual network, storage account, identity management, monitoring, all of the core operation skills that you need are covered in this single exam. Here's why it matters. I have interviewed people for Azure roles who had AZ305, the Solution Architect certificate, but couldn't explain how network security group actually works. They could design a theoretical architecture on whiteboard, but they would never actually develop one. AZ104 forces you to understand the fundamentals. And here's the thing about the fundamentals. They don't change much. The services evolve, but the core networking, security, and identity principle stays consistent. But there's a critical part. Don't take this exam after 2 weeks of studying. The certification itself is worth $165, and the experience you build while preparing for it, that is worth tens of thousands of dollars in salary difference. Spend 3 to 6 months actually building things in Azure before you take this exam. Set up virtual network, configure conditional access policy, implement a backup and disaster recovery solution. Build a complete hub and spoke topology. When you do pass AZ104, you should feel confident managing the production environment, not just passing an exam. The second certification is definitely AZ305, Azure Solutions Architect Expert. This is where you move from implementing to designing. After you have spent at least a year working with Azure infrastructure, maybe 2 years. I see people jumping from AZ104 straight to AZ305 after a month. You can memorize the answer and pass the exam, but you're not actually an architect. Architecture isn't about knowing which service exists, it's about understanding the trade-offs. When do you use Azure files versus Azure NetApp files? How do you design for compliance requirement while maintaining performance? What's the actual cost implication of design decision at scale? You only learn this through experience, by deploying things, seeing what breaks, understanding why it broke, and fixing it better the second time. Here's how you know you're ready for AZ305. When someone describes a business requirement, you can immediately think of 3 different ways to solve it in Azure. And more importantly, you can explain the pros and cons of each approach without looking up anything. That's the architecture, and that takes time. AZ305 certification is valuable because it proves that you can design enterprise scale solutions, but only if you actually have the experience to back it up. On papers with no experience, it's almost worthless. The third certification is your specialty, and this is where you make a strategic choice based on your career decision. You've got several options here. AZ500 is Azure Security Engineer. If you want to focus on security and compliance, this is huge right now. Every organization needs people who can implement zero trust, manage identity, and secure workloads. If you go this route, you are positioning yourself for security focused roles. Or you can pick a specialty based on what you actually work with. Azure Virtual Desktop specialty if you're working in VDI space, Azure for SAP workload if you're already in ERP enterprise environment, or one of the data or AI certification if that's what your direction is. Here's my take. Don't pick a specialty certification just because it sounds interesting. Pick it because it aligns with what you already are doing in your job. I focus on Azure Virtual Desktop because that's what I work with. That specialty certification adds credibility when I'm in the sales conversation. But if I had gotten a certification in something that I've never worked on, that would be meaningless. I'm not saying you should never have 4th or 5th certification. After these 3, every additional certification needs to have a clear strategic purpose. You are getting it because you are either moving into a new specialization or a specific job requires it. You're not getting it just to have another badge on LinkedIn. Now, let me tell you what hiring manager actually cares about. I've been on both sides of the equation. I've been the person trying to get hired, and I've been person doing the hiring now. And I can tell you with absolute certainty, practical experience beats certification count every single time. If I'm hiring for a Azure role and I see 2 resumes, person A has 8 certifications but 0 experience versus person B who only has AZ104 or AZ305, but their GitHub shows 3 or 4 solid projects, I'm calling person B for the interview every single time. Here's what you should be doing between each certification. Building real projects that demonstrate you can apply what you are learning. After AZ-104, build a complete landing zone with hub and spoke networking, implement conditional access policy, set up cost monitoring and alerting. Document the whole thing. Put it on your GitHub or your portfolio site. After AZ-305, design and deploy a multi-tier application architecture. Show how you made security decisions, cost optimization decisions, and high availability decisions. Prove that you can think like an architect. That's what gets you hired, not the number of certification in your LinkedIn profile. So let me summarize. 3 certification, 4 if you have a clear specialization. Start with AZ-104 and spend 3 to 6 months building hands-on experience before you take it. Move to AZ-305 when you are ready to design, not just implement. This should be at least a year after you start working in Azure. Choose one specialty based on your actual career direction, not just what sounds cool. And between each certification, focus on building real projects that prove that you can do the work. Here's my question for you. If you are already certified, how many Azure certification do you have? And do you feel like they have actually helped your career? Or are you realizing that you may have just overinvested in exams and underinvested in your experience? Drop a comment. I would love to know where people are on this, because I think a lot of us in Azure community have made this mistake at some point. Thank you for watching this. If this helped you think differently about certification, give it a thumbs up and subscribe for more practical Azure guidance. I am Parveen Singh and I will see you in the next one. Until then, stay curious and keep building.